Hello, welcome back to FPL IQ. I'm Rob, aka FPL Hall. I'm joined again today by teacher FPL Lucian, and we are looking at the red side of Manchester, Red Devils, Manchester United, who I think are a pretty popular side in the FPL community, but we are going to be discussing today, especially some of the negatives. Lucian doesn't have any Manchester United players in his side, so we'll discuss that later as to why. In today's video, just like all the other ones, we'll look at the formation, the play styles, the strengths and weaknesses, and players to potentially pick and avoid from Manchester United. So, Lucian, how are you feeling about Manchester United?
I will be playing Devil's Advocate. Alright. So I cannot wait. I cannot wait because I think my interpretation of Man United is massively different from the crowd, and I think this is a good platform. Thank you so much, Rob, for me to really explain the principles Ten Hag uses in terms of mentality, tactics, and everything else that they do well. So let's go.
One of the reasons why I wanted you part of the team is we don't always agree, we don't always have the same idea and opinion, and that's what the channel's always been about, to debate and discuss new ways to play, new outlooks on football teams at FPL, and that's what we try to do here. We're not just going to sit here and copy and paste each other and point out useless information. We're trying to look at a more analytical and in-depth view of teams and players, play styles, formations, etc. So let's start with the formation and play styles. Manchester United I've put here as a 4-3-3/4-2-3-1. We've discussed on previous videos that formations are more fluid and roles are more fluid nowadays, that what you see on an app or on Google where you type in the fixture and it shows you, a 4-2-3-1 formation, football isn't as simple as that anymore. Let's start with in goal. Now, I do have Henderson ? But it looks like he's out, and it looks like Onana has signed. He hasn't officially signed yet. That's why there's a question mark here. Just for intents and purposes, let's say it's Onana, right? Because it looks like it's a here we go from Fabrizio Romano, right? So let's say it's Onana. Right back, Wan-Bissaka. Left back, Shaw, Varane, and Martinez as the centre back partnership. In midfield, Casemiro, Mason Mount, and Bruno Fernandes. And up front, Antony and Sancho on the wings with Rashford down the middle. How do you feel about this starting 11, Lucian?
I almost completely disagree with most of it. I mean, I think Onana deserves a start. It's a very big statement by Erik Ten Hag signing this type of goalkeeper, because we need to go straight into the idea that Manchester United, I think everyone will at least agree, is still a club in transition. Right now, out of the starting 11 here, arguably only Bruno Fernandes and Rashford deserve their place. And perhaps Casemiro because of lack of competition. If Declan Rice were touted to Man United and Man United were willing to pay 100 million for Declan Rice, he'd probably displace Casemiro without question. So really, it is about transition from a side that Ten Hag probably admits that is significantly flawed to a side that he wants to present in order to beat teams. The thing about playing in the league in general is that, how we always say that goals wins games, but titles wins defenses. Defenses wins titles.
Yeah.
The idea of Ten Hag is that he has pressure from Manchester United's past, because Man United have had a really good record of keeping clean sheets and maintaining a steady run of defensive form in order to win titles. That is the type of football that is internal, whereas he has to bring his external influence to bring his brand of Dutch football from Ajax to integrate into this side to actually level up the Man United players. So that is the first cultural clash that Ten Hag has to deal with. The second being him trying to integrate a more club-based culture instead of a celebrity-based culture. The thing about previous managers, Ole and Jose Mourinho, for example, is that they've made one person or two people perhaps bigger than the entire club. Everyone revolved around Ronaldo, everyone revolved around Bruno Fernandes, everyone revolved around Jose Mourinho. And it worked so long as the star players performed. So long as the likes of Ibrahimovic were scoring goals, everything was hunky-dory. Whereas now, there is pressure calling for Man United to go back to that Sir Alex Ferguson mentality where no one is bigger than the club. So the question is, which will Ten Hag pick? Because he has the power right now to get rid of so many quote unquote bad boys, bad eggs, in order to really wash the entire side and revolve the side around players who are willing to work and die for the badge. So all of this is media talk. When it comes down to what happens on the pitch, we have to acknowledge that still most of their players are tactically flawed in some way. Jadon Sancho is neither a 9 or 10 or 7 or an 11. Anthony is a very good right winger, but he does not have the capability of beating Premier League fullbacks. Marcus Rashford has injury issues, and especially when he plays as a number 9, he's great when he's on fire, especially mentioned in your notes here. And Bruno Fernandes himself is great tactically as long as he agrees with the tactic that the gaffer picks. So when Erik Ten Hag's tactics are in full flow, you can pick Man United's best 11 blindfolded. But if you don't know whether Man United are in a good spot or not, you have no idea whether Eriksen will come in. You don't know if Johnny Evans will suddenly start at the back alongside Licha. You have no idea if Diogo Dalot suddenly bombs down the right wing instead of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. It all changes. Luke Shaw could play left centre back, and you have Tyreek Mitchell going down the left side. It all changes, and you don't know whether it's based on mentality or whether it's based on intentional tactics that they've practiced across the week. So that for me is what I think of Man United's lineup.
Great points. The only one that I just cannot accept is Casemiro. Casemiro is world class. Casemiro is absolutely a staple in this Manchester United side. And even if they signed Rice, Casemiro would still be playing for this team. Again, that's just a difference of opinion. But in terms of picking the teams, when we talk about some weaknesses later, potential rotation, but I think the interesting point that you're talking about is the mentality. It does feel as though, despite when I talk about some of the good stats that are backed behind them, maybe it's just because the last few years they've not been the Manchester United we've known for decades. But it does feel like at any moment, even if they're if they're in a rich vein of form and they're playing really good football, 3, 4, 5 wins on the bounce against City and another against Liverpool and looking really good, it just always feels fragile. It always feels like it just takes one loss or one error or one mistake and the whole team shatters mentally. And I'm just not too sure why that is. And Ten Hag's still trying to build that up. But I don't know why, because when we talk about the strengths in a moment, and I give you some key facts, they're good. They've actually posted good stats and done pretty well for if you compare it to recent seasons. Manchester United finishing third is exceptional for this side in recent years. It just feels like mentally, I think you're right, it could just be at any moment this team could just crumble. And I'm not too sure why, because they have winners in this side. I mean, Casemiro and Varane are multiple Champions League winners, but it just feels at any moment they could crumble. Let's look at the strengths then. Obviously, they're a lot better under Ten Hag. Most clean sheets with 17. So it's so funny because I put in my notes that I just don't feel confident in them getting clean sheets. I feel at any moment they could concede, especially when David De Gea was in there. But they got the most clean sheets. It's incredible. Third fewest goals conceded. So they're not even, it's not just like they've got clean sheets, but they've conceded a lot elsewhere. Man City were the other way around. Joint fewest conceded, but only 5th for clean sheets. They have the most clean sheets, 3rd fewest goals, 4th for most attempts. So looking at their attack, 4th for most attempts, 5th for big chances, but a little bit behind the top clubs with only 58 goals, which puts them at 7th. So they're actually underperforming. So even though they're posting a number of attempts and big chances, they're not putting them all away, which leads us on to the idea that they don't really have a forward, and Rashford is a winger who's more playing as a forward, centrally. If anything, this is showing us that they're underperforming with how many goals that they're putting away. You said it yourself, the starting 11, you can pretty much pick it blindfolded. The addition of Mount, I think he just comes in. We don't have McFred in the middle anymore, which I think every Manchester United fan is delighted about. Potentially a new striker coming in, another Norwegian young lad from Serie A. But again, we can only choose the players that are in front of us right now. They're posting very, very good defensive numbers, and they're posting pretty good attacking numbers. Their best assets are pretty much nailed every single week. So you're getting a nailed player like Bruno or Rashford in an attacking side that's posting good numbers. Even defensively, if you want to say Varane is maybe the most nailed defender, if we talk about weaknesses, it's the fitness. Or Shaw is another example. You're potentially getting clean sheets from the defense. You're potentially getting goals or assists from attack. I expect most managers will have at least one Manchester United player in their side. I'll be incredibly surprised if there's anyone watching this video who doesn't have any Manchester United players in their side. Like, even if it's just Shaw as one defender, or if it's Bruno or Rashford, or in my case, both, the pricing is reasonable. They're a top 4 side, and their best players are 8.5 and 9 million, which is the same price as, Arsenal, and cheaper than the likes of Son. How are you feeling? Do you feel any strengths in this side for Manchester United?
I just find that the strengths right now, they clash against each other. Last season, one of their biggest strengths was that they are massively underpriced, hampered by injury, lack of form, dodgy managers. With Ten Hag, they have a route to winning. They actually have a genuine route to winning, but it's just mysterious to opponents, let's put it that way. The thing about Ten Hag is that he has so many founding principles based on his Dutch footballing style that, he adjusts his tactics based on width, based on narrowness, based on overloads. It could be literally anything. He's that flexible and he's that intentional. And, as I will mention in the weaknesses later, he will live and die by that strategy. From a footballing perspective, that's great for watching because it basically usurps a bygone era where you had heroes. Man United were a club run by hero culture from the Busby Babes to the 90s batch all the way until now. Instead of relying on an entire squad, instead of relying on 1 to 2 players, now they rely on the manager. That's what they've got going for them. And I think the biggest, most obvious strength that Man United have right now is that they have good memories of their players doing well. They have very firm memories of their starting 11, bar Anthony. They have really good memories of what their players are expected to do when they are on fire. This is why trying to debate Bruno being overpriced is not winnable. I can spend all day coming up with the best points saying that Bruno's in the worst positions, facing competition from yada, 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 yada. And people will still, I can firmly say, that if I told people I'm going to hack into FPL Towers and I'm going to change Bruno's price from 8.5 to 11, people will still buy him easily. He is that demand inelastic.
He's gone down. He's 1 point. You said about the prices, Rashford's shot up. If Rashford wasn't central, I probably wouldn't have Rashford for 9 million. If he was still on the wing, I wouldn't have him. If he's the striker of Manchester United, I'll have him. If they sign a striker and Rashford gets pushed out, I won't have him. But Bruno is 8.5 million. He's gone down 1.5 million. It astounds me. He scored, 176 points he scored. And he's gone down from 10 to 8.5. Son was more expensive last year, but he's gone down to 9. He's still cheaper. Incredible value. Even if you think if he was 11 million, people would still get him.
Absolutely, because of the memories. Man United are all about image and memories. Bruno Fernandes' best memories has been it ranges from his beautiful chip assist and header in the 3-2 win against West Ham to the 96 penalty win over a penalty equalizer against Brighton to the big chances, big chance after big chance he set up against Brentford in their double game week. Like, I've been a very big Bruno owner myself. I will happily take Bruno Fernandes in double game weeks very easily. The thing about Bruno's pricing is that FPL Towers always considers projection. And I think right now Bruno Fernandes suffers from this thing called a downward trajectory, assuming that Man United wouldn't sign anybody new. I think with that flawed squad, Man United's stats probably would have put themselves above everybody else, but considering that the likes of Chelsea and Spurs and Liverpool will likely improve more than Man United, they have to put Bruno's price at 8.5. It's all about trajectory. That's how FPL Towers prices their players. Yeah, so really at this stage, I'm just happy that Man United are there. And honestly, I'd agree with you in the sense that I would own Shaw. If I were to sell TAA today, I would happily buy Luke Shaw, especially if TAA continues in his number 6 role which he showed in the most recent friendly.
Yeah, I'm losing more faith in Brighton players for some reason. I feel as though I like the first. If Brighton's first 3 fixtures weren't so good looking, I would have deleted the memory and probably not gone with them and gone with Luke Shaw instead of Estupiñán at the back. I saw in your notes as well, you're saying about the keeping Luke Shaw, and I've already mentioned in my notes about them keeping the most clean sheets, but you put here 7 out of 10 clean sheets against the bottom half teams. So you've got a pretty nailed on side that we can predict who get clean sheets against teams you expect them to get clean sheets against. So as a strength, I think that's fine. So your key points is the defense and the underpriced Bruno potential, which I think that's fair. If Rashford is the central striker, I'll keep him for 9 million. But if he goes out to the wing, I don't think I will. I think he loses value as a winger compared to when he's a striker. But let's move on to the weaknesses anyway. We've said about the mentality, feels fragile at times. 1 or 2 defeats and the fans turn against them. They turn against the owners. They say the players are useless. The players start playing poorly. You said downward trajectory. That's what their form feels like. When they're winning, they'll win. But when they lose, they'll hit a losing streak. Previously mentioned as well, not getting as many goals as they should. Injury prone. Injuries is the big weakness of this side. There is some slight rotation risk. So you said it yourself about Aaron Wan-Bissaka at the right side could get replaced by Dalot. Luke Shaw could get a rest and Malacia could come in. Centre back, it is usually Varane and Martinez, but they're injury prone. If we have a look at how many matches they started, Bruno Fernandes as well is a wonderful asset, not just because of his potential. He started 37 out of 38 games. So you're getting a top-class FPL player for 8.5 million who started almost every single game of the season. He's not injury-prone. But the defence, Luke Shaw, 30 games. Dalot, Martinez, both 24. Varane, 22. Wan-Bissaka, 16. Lindelof, 14. Malacia, 14. Maguire, 8. They can't keep fit. Casemiro, if he's not getting injured, he did 24 starts. If he's not getting injured, he's getting red cards. So you're looking at, and an issue is I find that their squad depth isn't very deep. So Rashford, who's traditionally a winger, is now playing as central striker. Martial is usually injured. When Rashford, who is also injury prone, is injured, who have they got to play? They loaned Weghorst from Burnley. Like, they've got no depth. Mount's come in, so that adds it. So that central midfield is not too bad because they've got Bruno Fernandes, they've got Eriksen, they've got Casemiro, they've got Mount, and they've still got Fred and McTominay. Yes, it's not ideal to have Fred and McTominay coming in, but if one of the central midfielders get injured, they've got a decent deputy to come in who can do the role to a certain extent. But if one of their attackers get injured, yeah, Garnacho had 5 starts. He's a promising player, but he's not a top 4 player. Not yet. I'm not saying he won't be, but if you're looking at the depth of Arsenal, the depth of Manchester City, even the depth of attacking wise of a team like Spurs, they've got some players that can come in who have proven quality. Manchester United don't. Even at centre back, you can argue that Lindelof is pretty good, but you don't want to see Maguire. If you've got a Manchester United defence, if you've got Luke Shaw and you see Harry Maguire in that starting lineup, you're feeling negative about it, right?
Or probably has trauma from the time Maguire blocked him off. Right, there was this goal they conceded where Maguire blocked Luke Shaw off from a clearance.
The wrong player. Yeah. Marking the wrong player. And attack is the huge one. If you've got Rashford as a central striker, great. But if Bruno's not playing, you're feeling negative about that game. Even the people I've got in the starting 11 here, Sancho came with a big price tag, a huge reputation from Dortmund, has been poor. To be polite, he's been poor. Anthony is just a left foot merchant who does that same little dribble. Granted, he might be improving, but he's overvalued. It just feels like an injury-prone side that also has a lack of depth, quality-wise, is, in my opinion, a key weakness for this Manchester United side. Any weaknesses that you want to point out about Manchester United?
I don't know how to put it forth as a weakness, at least to make it FPL relevant. There is a divergence between Man United's results and their expectations, because even if Man United comfortably beat Bournemouth 3-0, right, no one's convinced. The fan base And our expectations as FPL players is so scarred that we go, okay, Man United are about to go up against Man City. Do we remember the 2-1 win more fondly, or do we remember the 6-3 loss? Definitely the 6-3 loss. So, we realistically deep down put Man United at their standpoint where they will lose to United, they will lose to City, they will lose to Arsenal, they will lose to Liverpool. But in real life, they beat City 2-1. There's that 7-0 loss to Liverpool, but they did win game week 2 2-1 through very clever substitutions by Ten Hag. And they beat Arsenal 3-2 when Ronaldo scored twice. And that was a very controlled and complete performance by Ten Hag. But they will never convince us because Man United need to consistently challenge for first. They need to look like they challenge for first, and they need to actually challenge for first all the time. Yeah, I think one of the biggest weaknesses of United is that even though we've had good memories, we've also had plenty of trauma that prevents us from taking Man United seriously. And for me, Luke Shaw aside, I really cannot take Man United seriously right now until they sign perhaps another striker to keep Marcus Rashford on the left. That actually is where I disagree with you very heavily on Marcus Rashford being the best as a number 9, because I've watched a montage of Marcus Rashford's goals recently on Facebook, ironically, and it's very rare that he shows number 9 like behavior. He can score from range, he can score from the wing, he can beat defenders on the flanks, cut to the byline and score. He makes the best of low XG shots. Marcus Rashford can do so much more, and you will waste his potential playing him as a number 9. I will say that much. And that's all I'll add, because there are so many more weaknesses, but I don't see them FPL relevant right now.
The Rashford one's an interesting point. He is great at getting in behind and he can cut inside. I just feel 9 million might be too much compared to just playing as a striker. It's just so strange that we've discussed how good they are stat-wise in defence and attack. They finished 3rd in the Premier League. They're arguably underperforming in how many goals they actually scored. But we're still sat here, and it's the mentality at the club that we feel as though it can be fragile at times. The fans are quick to turn against them. And as FPL managers, the mentality, like, if we're going into the age of using AI and algorithm, mentality is not going to be really a part of it. The numbers are clear, the players are getting the points, but we're sat here and we're questioning our mentality of owning their players. We're questioning their own mentality as players. But they're doing the job. They're getting the points. They're doing the business. But we're still and ahhing whether we should have a top 3 Premier League side valued at under 9 million in our squads. It's just so strange. Like it's a unique. It feels like it's a unique feeling of all Premier League clubs where we've got a middle of the road side and we feel at the middle of the road. We've got a Champions League side or a relegation threatened side, and we know how we feel about them and we know what we're going to get. With Manchester United, it just feels like no matter what, you're going to be displeased. You got Rashford for 9 million, but he only scores 1 goal every 2 games. If you had another player at a club for that price, scoring at that ratio, you'd be happy about it. But for some reason, it's like, it's Manchester United, he should be scoring more. Or if he does go on a run, it's like, well, it's not going to last. Or everyone will jump on him because Manchester United is such a popular club. A lot of this FPL and football-wise with Manchester United feels like it's a mental game rather than them actually doing their business on the pitch. It's incredibly strange. We'll go into the top 3 picks. Look, Rashford and Bruno are the top 2. We don't need to talk about it. We've talked about it a lot. Everyone knows we don't need to teach a granny how to suck eggs, right? My 3rd one, though, I'm going to give to Mason Mount. 7 million. If he's given the license to roam, like at times he was originally at Chelsea, if he can be allowed to get forward and it's not just given to Bruno to do that, I think 7 million could be a great price. Good fixtures, top 3 side. We've talked about how good they are in attack as well as defense. Mason Mount is a good player if he's given that license to get forward. If they hold him back, obviously he won't be as good. But if they say, you can get forward on the attack, you can come from deep, etc., I think 7 million, he's a fair price. He's slightly more expensive than the 6.5 millions, but he's 1 to 1.5 million cheaper than all the other top 4 Premier League sides. That would be my 3rd choice. Your top picks from Manchester United?
I think Luke Shaw has grown into a very adaptable player under Ten Hag, and he's in the perfect position, even at 5.5 million, to take advantage of bonus points and whatever that they throw at him. I think considering the opening schedule right now, I'm still 51-49 decided on whether to have a combination of TAA and CISO, for example, right? That adds up to 14 million versus Shaw and an A.5 million. See the difference? It's mad. It's
Huge.
absolutely mad.
That's why I don't
Yeah,
have
it's
Trent.
huge.
I've
So
not had Trent in a single draft.
yeah. So I'm only just shading having Trent for now, but I could easily switch to a Shaw plus a Foden, and that will make my side look so much better, even as a 3-4-3.
And you'd
So
have
that's why
money.
Shaw's my top pick.
You'd have money
Yeah.
as well. If you went
Yeah.
Foden, you'd have an extra million to play around
Yeah.
somewhere else or keep in the bank.
Yeah. I cannot promote anyone else from Man United right now. I actually feel that Rashford and Bruno are both overpriced because I do not foresee Ten Hag showing a crystal clear method of how he will score against teams right now. Because I think no one's position, even Bruno Fernandes's position, no one is set in stone because of the arrival of Mount, because of the potential threats of Casemiro and Eriksen and Jadon Sancho and Anthony. I can't believe I conflated those names together. Everything's not set in stone. And so if I do not see a reliable way for Man United to score goals, then I'm just not going to touch it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's good. It's like you said, being devil's advocate, playing it your own way, analyzing it how you feel. And there's so many great options for similar prices. It feels like you can't really go wrong. If you decide you don't want Rashford, you want Heung-min Son, I don't think that's crazy. If you don't want Bruno Fernandes, you want Erdegaard. I don't think that's crazy. I think there's many ways that we can play the game this year, apart from Haaland as your striker, which is
I've just
great.
gone for everyone cheaper. I've really just gone for everyone cheaper. Like if Bruno and Rashford are probably like number 6 and number 5 on my list. My top 4 midfielders right now would be Martinelli, Odegaard, Phil Foden, and then one of the Liverpool midfielders. If not Salah, then it'd be someone like Luis Diaz or Diogo Jota, whoever starts. And then I have Bruno and Rashford down there.
Yeah, you're just trying to aim for like a threemium, right? 3 premiums, so that's the key. We'll go on to the weaknesses then, potential traps or ones to avoid. I've just gone for the defenders. Even again, I said earlier, it's mentally. Even though they've kept the most clean sheets, I just don't feel confident in them doing so. Shaw got 124 points, which isn't too bad, but he's 5.5 million now. I think it's slightly more expensive, but in attack, I'm going Bruno and Rashford. That's it. That's all I'm going to touch from this side. If I had to go defense, it's just injury prone. It's just how often the likes of Shaw gets injured and how he's the most starting defender with 30 out of 38. The rest don't even hit 25. They don't even hit like 2/3. And for me, that's just for 5 million. I said it in previous videos. If I've got a defense, I want them to play minimum 30 games a season without a sweat and without a risk of rotation. Shaw could get injured or replaced by Malacia. Wan-Bissaka could easily swap with Dalot. If they're playing Luton at home, would you play Aaron Wan-Bissaka or would you play Diogo Dalot? I'd play Dalot because we're probably going to control and we're going to attack, and Dalot's going to be the one that shoots forward. If I'm playing Man City away, I'm probably going to play Aaron Wan-Bissaka. But equally, I don't want to play a defender against Man City away. What's the point in owning someone like Wan-Bissaka? And then centre back wise, they don't particularly get a lot of bonus points, and they're also injury prone as well. I would just say avoid the defence. If Onana comes in at 5 million, considering they did just get the most amount of clean sheets, I don't think he would be the worst option. But I am actually against the defence. I like how Shaw gets forward. I know he can get points, but he's injury prone. He could miss a few games, be it through rotation or through injury. So that's the weaknesses. The ones to avoid, the traps on mine. Any ones that you would suggest to avoid or pick?
Central midfielders. Don't pick central midfielders. Even Bruno Fernandes. Don't. Because as much as Bruno Fernandes is productive, as much as his numbers are beautiful, I think he is still subjected to the finishing quality of his teammates. And traditionally, we know that Man United needs somebody to really go on a hot streak before they finish their chances. So as much as I'd like to back Bruno and say, oh yeah, he's doing all these things wonderfully, he's pressing, he's the talisman and the captain and the soul of Man United. If he's subjected to other people's finishing, then I'm not going to touch him. Only if Bruno Fernandes were the absolute talisman of the club, I would happily buy him no matter what the price.
I think he is, and I think that they're going to make him captain. Maguire's being stripped. I think Bruno's going to be captain. I think he's a staple. But I will be watching preseason to see the Mount effect. Because if that does, for some reason, even if, let's say, out of 10, before Mount, Bruno got forward 9 times out of 10. If Mount has joined and now sometimes he goes forward and Bruno sits back and now Bruno gets forward 6 times out of 10, that would make me consider. So once we get some more serious preseason games where Mount and Bruno are playing, and that we can get an idea of how many forward runs Bruno makes, where his heat map is, where his chances are coming from and getting created from, that'll be the final decision for me. But if it's anything at all like previous seasons, he's in my side. But yeah, if Mount has come in and we see slightly deeper on the heat map, slightly deeper on the touches and the chance creation and the etc., that's the only thing that's going to turn my head away from Bruno. Overall, I'm going to give Manchester United an 8 out of 10 because the key assets are nailed. They are proven point scorers, and even though I personally am not for the defense, I cannot be against anyone who goes for Onana if he goes and he's 5 million, or Shaw. 8 out of 10 for me. What would you rate Manchester United as?
I actually rate them higher, 9 out of 10. It's just a shame that they're overpriced, or that other strikers or other players are just more value for money at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, you rate them so highly, but just because of how you're structuring your side, they just don't fit in because of price. If, let's say then, I'd say it's unlimited. You have unlimited funds, but you still can only choose 3 per Premier League side. You would probably have a Manchester United player in then, right?
Yeah, I'd have 2.
It's just that you're playing around at the moment with a 3 premium structure, but if money gets moved elsewhere,
I just feel that Arsenal, Liverpool, and City provide more value right now.
and that's
Arsenal,
so
Liverpool, and City.
that's so strange because I don't have any Liverpool, and I'm the same. I regard them so highly. I think they're an absolutely incredible side, but I feel like they have even more rotation risk than Manchester United, and I wouldn't feel and for me it's the price of Salah. So I'm the same as you for Liverpool, as you are for Manchester United, right? Salah's just too much for me, and I love Jota and Gakpo. Gakpo's now a forward, which I don't like, but last season Gakpo was in my side. I was one of the an early owner of him. Yeah, I just don't trust their rotation, but overall they're a good side, and I don't blame anyone at all for having at least 1 or 2 out of these assets. They're just, in your opinion, slightly overpriced. So thanks for joining us on today's Manchester United video. Up next, it's the Magpies, Newcastle United, new signings with the likes of Tonali joining. Lots of people excited about this Newcastle side in the future. Easy to predict the starting 11, or particularly the defense. They're definitely a team I think people are looking at, but are they? Because they do have a pretty difficult start to the season. But thanks for joining for today's video, and as always, have a good one.